Where did you learn not to love yourself? Does that come from mum? Does that come from dad? Does that come from both? And then look back at even your grandparents. Did they not love themselves? Especially with women, like when you look back at the history, women didn't know how to love themselves. They were always self-sacrificing and they were always giving their time and energy to the family, to the community, but never to themselves. So that's why a lot of women have an issue with loving themselves.
Well, hello there, prosperity seeker, and welcome to another episode of the Prosperity Approach. I'm your host, Allyson Chavez, and as always, I'm just so grateful and so thrilled that you're joining us either on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app today. We have a really amazing conversation about trauma today with a really cool expert, and I'm going to introduce her in just a minute. But before I pull her on, just a quick reminder that if you're listening to this episode, be sure that you are following along on your favorite app. And if you are watching us on YouTube today, we sure would appreciate for you to like and subscribe so that you are in the know whenever we're dropping down another episode. So with that, I am so excited to have Gurds Hundal on our podcast today. And let me tell you just a little bit about her. First of all, she hosts the Inner Light Project podcast, and you're going to want to go check that out because she is a trauma coach and an inner work expert for high achieving, sensitive women who want to transform trauma and trust themselves. She's helped many clients to heal from ancestral, cultural, societal, and family trauma, as well as childhood, financial, relationship, and first generational trauma, and speak their truth with no fear. And just let me interject. Holy cow. There's never been a more powerful time to speak your truth without fear than in this cancel culture that's been created lately. Gurds has more than a decade of experience in self-healing, coaching, journalism, and healthcare, and has helped many women to infinitely trust themselves and speak their truth. As a former Yorkshire lass, Gurds now lives in London. Welcome to the Prosperity Approach.
Thank you so much. Oh, I'm so excited to be here with you. I just know our energy when we come together, magic just happens.
It is. It's wonderful. And I am really excited for this conversation, even though this topic is heavy. I mean, you say the word trauma and people just most people will just shut right down because they don't want to deal with it. They don't know how to deal with it. They're overwhelmed by it. And they just want to change the subject. So this is why we're talking about this today. So let's just dive right in. How do we heal it? How do we heal trauma?
Well, that's a big thing to ask. You see, for me, I know you said trauma, oh my God, people are scared of it. But for me, it's the opposite. I get really excited when I can help somebody because it's all about dissecting what's holding us back. All of us have trauma, no matter how positive our experience is, no matter how many amazing figures we've had in our life, we all have some form of trauma because we are all conditioned to believe certain things. So when we're a child, we grow up and we're just free, don't care. We dance around la, la, la. And then suddenly all these expectations are placed on us, not just from family, but friends, from society, from school, from just life in general. And especially as a girl, oh my God, so much layers and layers of trauma gets added up. And we don't even realize it until I would say you have a midlife crisis or sometimes even a later life crisis. And so the key to healing trauma, even though it's a massive question, is to look at your patterns. Where do they stem from? Where did, I'll give an example. So where did you learn not to love yourself? Does that come from mum? Does that come from dad? Does that come from both? And then look back at even your grandparents. Did they not love themselves? Especially with women, when you look back at the history, women didn't know how to love themselves. They were always self-sacrificing and they were always giving their time and energy to the family, to the community, but never to themselves. So that's why a lot of women have an issue with loving themselves. And a lot of women have issues with putting themselves first. Now, I'm not saying that men don't know how, men know how to love themselves, because that's not true. Men also sometimes don't know how to love themselves. It all depends on how you were raised. But men have also been taught how to put themselves first. We've never been taught that. We've been told the opposite. Put on this good girl attitude, people please, sacrifice, make sure everyone else is perfect but yourself. And so the key is to look back at where some of your patterns come from. And that's kind of what the work I do is I dissect with my clients what is going on in their life Why is it they're not feeling happy? What is it that's holding them back? What is it stopping them from loving themselves? What is it stopping them from speaking their truth? And a lot of it comes from trauma.
Absolutely.
Not just theirs, generational trauma.
So do you feel like we inherit some trauma, some generational trauma, that it's not necessarily ours, but we still have to deal with it?
It's in our DNA.
Uh-huh.
I can give you examples. Like I remember once, like there was this aunt that I was so mad with, and I never really understood why. I never liked her growing up. And then I asked my mom some questions, and she was like, "Well, this happened whilst I was expecting you." And I went, "Oh, now I get it." So whatever energy your mum may have had with somebody, or some, like, you know, they might have not liked somebody, or someone may have mistreated them. Usually it's passed on down into you. So it's in your DNA. So like you've got to think not just your mum, your grandma, your great grandma, your great grandfather. Like it's all within us. And that's why we have to be the people to heal that. Because when we heal the next generation, we heal the next lineage of ours. But someone has to kind of put their foot down and say, enough is enough. And usually the one that's going through this midlife crisis or going through like the dark night of the soul is the one to heal it.
Why is that? It is the one that's going through the most and it's got the dark night of the soul. Why is that we've got to deal with the generational healing?
I think it's because the universe is saying, right, there has to be someone changed in the family.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a reason why people are black sheep of the family. It's because you see things that most people don't see. And so the universe has given you that. Like, I'm going to say it's magic because you are the one that gets to shift the future for your family. Like that's powerful. It's not given to the easiest person. Like it's given to somebody who can handle that shit.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I 100% agree with you on that we inherit a lot of trauma from our generational, from our lineage that isn't even ours. But I talk to a lot of people who are changed, like they're chain breakers. So I'll speak in front of audience and I'm like, all right, who are my chain breakers here? And virtually every hand goes up in the audience. And I'm like, yeah, we're all chain breakers here. And so, you know, I asked that question, why is it those of us going through that dark night of the soul that we're the ones in charge of it? Is actually, I really believe it's because we volunteered to do it. Like, we're like, you know what, the buck is going to stop here because this pattern of abuse or this pattern of neglect or this pattern of sacrificing when it's not actually necessary for us to be constantly sacrificing, like this poverty or not enoughness, like it has to stop. And it's going to stop with me. And to your point, it is very powerful. It's not for the faint of heart at all. It's not for the faint of heart. It does take some power in that. But is there a way that we can take out some of the fear of doing trauma work?
Looking at the gift of it, I know it doesn't sound it in the moment because it can feel messy and it can feel raw, but what are the signs teaching you? So like for me, I kind of, when I look back at everything, was like, okay, so this is happening, but what's the lesson and what's the blessing? So I was like, okay, so now I know, okay, I people please. Okay, so this person did this to me, or did I allow them to do that to me? So again, it's seeing the lessons, but then the blessing is, well, that happened, but actually look where I am right now. So the key is to always look at the lessons and the blessings. And I just think sometimes we can get lost in our mind, think the worst case scenario, but focus on the positive aspect of why has it happened? Why are you ready to heal it? There's a reason why it's coming up, because your soul is saying enough is enough. Just like the people pleasing, the sacrificing, your body kind of tells you enough is enough. And so it's like, okay, yes, this is happening. However, what can we learn from that? And what message can I take? And what gift can I take from that? And everything will just be better. Like, I honestly believe that, like, you know, as you know, I recently came out of a long-term relationship and, you know, it was like, it was messy, it was raw. But I was like, what's the lesson out of this? And I was like, I get to live life on my own terms. I get to do things that I've always dreamt of doing, which I've been holding back for a long time. That's the blessing. Even though it's raw, even though it's messy, even though it's painful, the blessing is I get to choose the life that I want to live now.
Oh, I love that. And I think that it also, when we look at it from that way, what's the lesson and what's the blessing? And no, the lesson is not that you're the world's biggest idiot. That's not the lesson. Like, there are things like, this is actually how powerful I am. Like, I was a co-creator of this mess. I was a co-creator of whatever this situation is. And I think it actually helps us to pull some of our power back instead of feeling like we're just helpless to change anything or that we're a victim victim to somebody else. We're a victim to circumstances, or even a victim to our own thoughts. And so it like pops you into this higher level of awareness and this higher level of power, wherein you can really see the gifts that are there and the blessings that are there, instead of being like, all right, well, everything's going to work out somehow, but not actually believing it. And I think that trauma work takes an element of trust in there. Like, you can pull these things up and you can examine them, and you can acknowledge the pain, and you can acknowledge the rawness of it, and you can acknowledge all of that and still be able to move through it. I think a lot of us are so afraid we're just going to get stuck in the pain, and then we'll never ever get out of the pain. But there's an element of trust, I think, that is required for us to move through trauma. So what do you think holds us back from trusting ourselves?
Because we've never been taught how to. Think about it. Like, society has always been told to look externally, never internally. So we go to school, we get an education, and we're told you must, follow this, get good grades, get a good job, get a house, have kids, get married, have this car. Like, it's always externally, but it's not internally, spiritually. It's all materialistic externally. So we're seeking these lives for all these like wants and desires that are all external, but we've never had knowledge of self. So we've never learned how to feel, deal, and heal our trauma. We've been told, like, if we feel low, oh, take an antidepressant. There must be something wrong with you. But actually, we're human. We have emotions. We're supposed to feel things. We're supposed to ride through the emotion and then learn how to heal it, and then learn how to deal with it. And life will always get better. I think I had this conversation with somebody a while back that, like, life is never straight. There's going to be highs and there's going to be lows. We just have to learn how to manage it. But again, we've never been taught that. And our society is so quick to judge. If you're not happy, then there's something wrong with you. No, that's part of the journey. Like, you've got to feel what you're feeling. You've got to have those shitty days. You've got to have those moments. But, it's no one has taught us, honestly, not even our family. No one has taught us how to have knowledge of self. And that's why people have that kind of like quarter life crisis, which I did, or midlife crisis, because no one has ever given them the tools to know how to heal. And I think when you know yourself within, none of the stuff outside matters. Like, you start to realize the house, the car, the luxury stuff, none of that matters. It's all about how you feel happy within. That is what's key. When you're happy within, everything shines bright. You feel happier, you feel healthier. And, if you have a shit moment happening in your life, you're able to handle it, and it's easy and it's effortless. But when we haven't been taught that, we don't know. And, for me, God, we're talking over 10 years ago now. I had a quarter life crisis. Like, everything on the outside looked amazing. I was a journalist living this life. Internally, I was a hot mess. I was all over the place, in toxic relationships, unhappy. And I was sat there in the hospital, 25 years old, going, what have I done to deserve this? And, we all kind of have that low moment and that kind of victim feeling. Mm-hmm. And I heard a voice saying, you created this. And I went, what? Who's that? And I looked around the room and there was nobody there. And I was like, oh, okay. Thought I was going cuckoo. Got misdiagnosed with a cancer scare. Oh, ran out of the hospital crying. Yeah, it was life-changing for me in that moment. And so I ran out of the hospital crying after they misdiagnosed me. And I heard the words, it's time to heal. And again, I looked up and I was like, what is this voice? Like, obviously I didn't know what it was. It was higher power at the time. And I said, okay. And I trusted the process. That's what I mean. Like, when you trust in that, in yourself, you'll find a way. You'll find a way to heal. You'll find the right people to help you. You'll find the right people to help you, learn about yourself. But again, like, I had no clue. I didn't know how to love myself internally. No one ever taught me that. My family didn't teach me that. And that's why we've really got to do the work to love ourselves, to honor ourselves, to respect ourselves, to trust in ourselves. Like,
I love that. So was that really like the hinge point for you when you had that misdiagnosis with the cancer scare? You end up in the hospital, 25 years old, going, how in the world did I get here? Because here's my question. Like, you were this journalist, and now you do trauma work. So I'm like, how did you go from journalism to trauma work? And so tell me, tell us all how you got to where you are. What happened?
God. Well, to be honest, even when I look back at my life, even when I was like 8 or 9 years old, people would come to me with their problems and I would help them. Adults would come to me as a child. It was so strange growing up. And then whilst I was at university, as you guys say, college, I was working in a pharmacy. So I was always listening to people's problems. I would just literally, Allyson, I'm not joking, I would stand there and I'd somebody'd hand their prescription and I'd learn their life story. I wouldn't even say anything. So it was always there within me, but I didn't really know. So I loved communication. So I was like, yes, journalism, great. And then, yeah, my whole life I was like, I want to be a journalist, I want to be a health presenter. I want to, make sure everybody's okay. So it was always like health related. And I was just really unhappy that because it's a very toxic environment, negative news. I started to get depressed. I was like drinking, going off the rails. And then that's when the life-changing moment happened. Was I was made redundant first in like the July, and then the October happened just after my birthday, the whole cancer scare thing. And that was like the turning point when I heard it's time to heal. I just surrendered. I think I stayed for another year in journalism. I just decided to freelance at lots of different health like magazines, newspapers, like Women's Health magazine. I was just trying to find what was me. And then all I kept feeling was, I'm here to be a coach. And I was like, where is this coming from? And then I just went on this journey of like self-healing. I had a radio show. Me and my colleague at the time, we would like do Reiki on the radio. We would do all sorts of like EFT, you name it, have people on the radio. And it just led me on this journey. And the more I did my inner work, the more I learned the power of it. And actually, I forgot about this, by the way. When I came back from the hospital, I actually wrote 30 pages of my life in 7 hours. Don't know how I did it. Still to this day, I have no clue, Allyson. I don't know what I did. And I looked in the mirror and I cried and I said, I love myself. And I just bawled my eyes out. And that journey just led me towards, and everything I teach is literally everything I've been through. So like I learned how to love myself. I learned boundaries. I learned how to speak my truth. I learned how to heal patriarchal society, familial, ancestral. Like we're talking 11 years of work I've done on myself. And that's why I'm so passionate about what I do, because I know we all have the ability to heal. And, a few years ago, I actually had a health condition, like severe. I was born with a kidney defect. I didn't even know I had it till I was 29 years old. My whole life shifted. I was bedbound for a very long time and had to accept it. And that was the hardest point in my life. And I still kind of worked as much as I could. But at the time, I didn't know what was going to happen, but I had hope. You see, because I'd done the inner work, I had hope. And I found a way and I had kidney disease in the end, but I reversed it in 7 months. It taught me a lot about who I am, and that, even if you're going at your lowest point in your life, if you've done the inner work, you can handle anything. And that's what it taught me. Even with my journey with my health, it taught me I can handle anything because I know myself. I have my boundaries. I speak my truth. And that's what I'm trying to say is that life hasn't been easy for me. But I've learned that the key is that you can roll with life if you learn to love and accept yourself and do this trauma work and nourish yourself and balance your energy.
What would you say? I mean, I love that you help women to speak their truth. And this is something that's really, really difficult to do in this society, because it's been set up now that if you speak your truth and your truth offends somebody else, then not only are you canceled, but they try to destroy your reputation and your career and your entire life. Like the blowback that comes from, I believe in traditional marriage. I believe in traditional values. I believe that women cannot be biological men, and biological men cannot be women. Like, it is not possible. And yet, I mean, we see people literally trying to destroy others for having a different opinion and having a different viewpoint. So what do you do with your clients, and how do you help them to confidently speak their truth in this kind of climate?
Well, first, the key is to do the trauma work, because when we don't do the trauma work, it's very hard to hold your boundaries and speak your truth. So when we do like the whole cultural, society, familiar, we peel that off, then it's easier to put in boundaries, then it's easier to speak your truth. But obviously there's moments where they are struggling and I'll help them and I'll guide them. But the key is that even if you don't speak your truth, or you do speak your truth, you're already going to be wronged anyway. You can't win. We're in a world right now where it's like going back to the dark ages where witches were speaking their truth and they were getting, burned at the stake. This is what's happening in society right now, within the media, within the press. You're not going to win, but you have to fight for what's right. Because if we don't fight for what's right, the next generation of women will suffer. It's a pattern, like I see. And the more we become free and liberated in our feminine energy, it irritates men who are wounded in their masculine energy.
Mm-hmm.
That is what's going on right now. But the key is to keep going. But if you know somebody is going to be toxic, or they're not willing to hear you, you don't waste your energy. You don't speak to them. Why waste your breath? Like, those kind of people you ignore. But then the ones that are willing to meet you and they may question things, that's the kind of people you have those conversations with, and you speak from the heart. And that's what I've always told them: speak from the heart, even if it doesn't feel right and if you're scared. Speak from the heart, because it gets easier. I was so afraid the first time I spoke my truth. Like, my voice was shaking. I was like, oh, have I done the right thing? And the more I did it, the easier it got. So, in like anything in life, nothing's ever going to be easy. We've got to still speak our truth, because at the end of the day, that is your gift with the universe. The universe made you who you are for a reason. So when other people judge you about who you really are, they're just judging themselves.
Yes. Yes, the judgment's going to happen regardless. So, we can't, that's part of human nature. We can't stop any of that. What we can control is how bothered we are by other people's opinion, whether good or bad. How affected are we by somebody's good opinion or somebody's bad opinion? And the more we can be unaffected, the better it is, because we're just detached from that. That's their experience, and my experience gets to be mine. And that was something that I had to learn. The first time I spoke my truth, I had to whisper it. I literally had to whisper it, because I couldn't get it to come out. I had terrible boundaries. And such a hard time speaking my own truth. One thing that I want to touch on is that you work with high achieving, sensitive women. So, and we've been having a little bit on the outskirts, we've been talking about energy, and everything is all about energies. But I want to talk about the energy of the planet and highly sensitive people, and even empaths. So can we walk down that path for just a minute? Because I think people have a hard time knowing, am I an empath? How do I know if I'm an empath? Is somebody else an empath? So tell me what the differentiation is for you between somebody who is sensitive and somebody who's an empath.
Gosh. So an empath is somebody who feels people's emotions. People come to them, they randomly are just living their life, and random strangers will come to them with their problems, or they might be stood in a supermarket and somebody just sharing their whole life experience with you. You tend to be a person that wants to fix and save people. You end up being the people pleaser, the sacrificer in your family. You feel the energy so much that you get overwhelmed and you don't know how to handle it. And if somebody says anything about you, or they're going through a traumatic experience, you take it on as if it's your own, and it's stored in your body. And you feel this anger and resentment, and you don't know why. And most of the time, it's actually other people's stuff. You just haven't learned how to clear it out of your system. But also, even as a highly sensitive person, it's that you can feel other people's stuff, and you can feel energies, sound, lights, textures can affect you. Even TV shows can affect you if they're scary movies, or someone like a stabbing scene. It's energy. And so that's how I kind of define the difference. But the thing with empaths is that they end up going on with this fixer and saver role, which I find that some people can be highly sensitive. But with empaths, they just can't help themselves. They want to fix everybody and anybody, because they're afraid of actually doing their work from within to save themselves. So they kind of project it on the outside rather than actually helping to heal themselves.
Oh, okay. So you're an empath, correct?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So, but you have really, really great boundaries. I can tell that. And you've talked about your boundaries. So you can be an empath and still have very strong boundaries. Yes?
Yes, but I wasn't like this in the beginning. I was all over the place. I would listen to people's problems at 3 a.m. in the morning. I was in an ambulance, with a mask on my mouth, and I'm can't breathe and listening to someone's problems. That was me. I was a self-sacrificer. I put myself last. And it was only till I started doing the trauma work and healing myself and seeing my patterns that I realized, and speaking my truth, that I started to hold boundaries. And again, it wasn't easy, because being an empath, we want to make sure that we don't overstep the mark. We don't make sure that, we're hurting anybody. But it's taken me, we're talking, a long time to put boundaries in. And it wasn't easy, but we can do it if we are willing to do the work.
How hard is the work?
Well, if you work with me, it's not that hard. Because I think we all need support, whether it's me or somebody else. When you have somebody else supporting and guiding you, it's so powerful. I did it alone, and I look back and I think, God, that was so hard. I think it's so important to have the right kind of people around you who can support you and help you, guide you, whether that's a program, whether that's a course, whether that's a one-to-one with somebody. I find that it makes your life easier because we want to relate to people. We want to be heard. We want to be understood. We want to be accepted. And when somebody holds that space to hear you without judgment, my gosh, the work is done easy. Like I have a VIP day, which is a 5-hour session, which sometimes ends up going, I think my highest has been 8, because sometimes everyone has different levels of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So it varies. And we literally pull out a lifetime there and then, and they change. It's something that I've learned over, and I see patterns. I've got, the way my friend even mentioned it, I've got like a matrix brain. Like I see things that most people don't see. So I'm able to dissect and see things, and then we heal it all step by step for the whole day. And that's it. Their life has changed. But again, this is because I've done 11 years on myself. So there are people out there can help you. Again, it's a gift. But yeah, if you want help, I'm here. I'm more than happy to help you do the work. Like, you know, I love helping people to just heal the past so they can actually be their authentic self and speak their truth.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think too that one of the reasons why we get scared to do trauma work is because we think it's going to be so hard and it's going to overwhelm us. But one thing that helped me to like lean into that work is like, this is going to be intense. Like we're not walking down the mall trying on our favorite pair of shoes here. Like this, there's going to be some intensity to this, but it doesn't have to be hard, and you don't have to re-traumatize yourself as you're working through the trauma. That kind of defeats the purpose of the trauma work. But we can allow it to be intense. But I love the fact you're like, when somebody's going to hold that space for you and somebody's there with you, either witnessing it, or sometimes you're just holding that space witnessing. And other times in that process, you're helping them process through it and you're walking them, through the depths of that. But you come out the other side of it and you like you said, like you're transformed. It's just this huge weight is off of you, and you literally see colors you didn't see before and shades you never saw before. And things are lighter and brighter because that's no longer dimming your soul. I mean, it's such important, worthwhile work to do. And it's so fun to watch your eyes. I've been watching your eyes as you've been talking about it, and your eyes just light up, and most people are just like, oh man, trauma work. But you're just like, yes,
let's go. Like, yeah, let's heal it.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
So people are going to want to know where to find you. So where can they find you?
So if you literally Google me, Gurds Hundal, so that's GURDSHUNDAL.com. You'll find my website, you'll find my Instagram, you'll find me on like my podcast, which is the Inner Light Project. You can find me on all social media. I'm literally, if you just Google my name, it will come up with everything. The key is like, we are never alone. We think we're alone, but actually the universe, God, whatever it is with you, guiding you. And there's a reason why you're being asked to heal. It's not that they're trying to make you suffer. It's not trying to say that, the end of the world. The universe is saying, are you ready for a better life? Because this life that you are living externally is no longer serving you. Are you ready to go within and be happier, healthier, and just free?
Oh. And you know what? That is the perfect note to end on, that this isn't just about ripping your soul apart. This is about how good are you willing to let life get. And you have to be willing to let go of the trauma so that life can get better and better and easier and easier. And again, you don't have to do it alone. You're never alone. I think that you are just so brilliant and so amazing that people would find such great value in working with you. You're safe. You've been there. You get it, and you can shorten their process exponentially. I don't know if that's the right phraseology for all of that, but like you can like move through this so much faster than you yourself move through it. Like you pioneered it so that others don't have to have that same kind of intensity that you went through yourself. Intensity, yes, but not anything that they can't handle. And so, gosh, thank you so much. And all of those links are in the show notes. So make sure that you click on those links and reach out to Gurds. And I know that she will swoop you up in her arms and take such amazing care of you. So Gurds, again, thank you so much for being here. And those of you who have tuned in, thank you also for your time and for your love and your energy. And until next time, remember, prosperity becomes you.